All right, everyone, welcome back. This is Pristine Paper, and today we need to talk about something pretty serious, something that's been on my mind, and I'm sure on the minds of many of you who love sports cards as much as I do. We need to talk about why this hobby, the one we grew up with, the one that brought us so much joy, it's failing. And honestly, it's been a pretty rapid decline over the last 5 years. A decline that feels less like a natural evolution and more like a systematic dismantling. This unfortunate turn of events can largely be attributed to the disruptive and often destructive influence of three major players: Fanatics, Whatnot, and the pervasive rise of influencers within the hobby. Each of these entities, in their own unique way, has contributed to an environment that feels less welcoming, more predatory, and ultimately, less sustainable for the average collector. The once vibrant community spirit is being eroded, replaced by a ruthless pursuit of profit and a disregard for the foundational principles that made sports card collecting such a beloved pastime. We're first going to look at Fanatics. Their entry onto the scene, marked by the strategic acquisition of Topps and the securing of exclusive licensing deals across virtually every major professional sports league, was not merely a significant event, it was a seismic shift that continues to reverberate throughout the industry. And from the perspective of many longtime collectors and independent retailers, this shift has not been for the better. Fanatics' aggressive expansion has cultivated a near monopolistic control over the primary market for licensed sports trading cards. This dominance translates into immense pricing power and unprecedented control over product distribution and availability. The most immediate and concerning casualty of this market consolidation has been the local card shops, the very backbone and lifeblood of our hobby. These independent businesses, often run by passionate collectors themselves, are finding it increasingly difficult to compete. They are struggling to source product at competitive prices, facing challenges in securing allocations, and contending with a retail landscape that increasingly favors the direct-to-consumer model championed by Fanatics. There's a palpable and genuine fear among collectors and shop owners alike that Fanatics' ambitions extend beyond the primary market, with their ventures like Fanatics Live potentially aiming to monopolize the secondary market as well. If this were to occur, the consequences could be dire: stifled competition, limited choices for consumers, and a potential race to the bottom in terms of product quality and customer service. The very essence of what makes the hobby vibrant, the diversity of products, the thrill of the chase, and the community fostered by local shops, is at risk. And speaking of quality, it's an unavoidable topic when discussing Fanatics' tenure. A pervasive sentiment among collectors is that since Fanatics assumed control, there's been a noticeable and consistent decline in quality control across their licensed products. The anecdotal evidence is overwhelming and frustratingly common. Collectors routinely report receiving damaged cards directly from packs, misaligned prints where images are off-center, incorrect jersey numbers adorning player cards, and even misspelled names on highly sought-after parallels. Perhaps most bizarrely and disconcertingly, some collectors have encountered cards featuring weird, AI-generated player photos that bear little resemblance to the actual athletes. When collectors are paying premium prices for licensed products, often investing significant sums in chases for rare inserts or autographs, they expect and deserve a certain standard of manufacturing and presentation. Fanatics, by many accounts, is simply not consistently delivering on this fundamental expectation. This direct-to-consumer approach, while efficient for Fanatics, has simultaneously placed immense financial pressure on local card shops, leading to the unfortunate closure of many cherished establishments that were once cornerstones of their local collecting communities. Furthermore, the ongoing and highly publicized legal battles, particularly with Panini, only serve to inject more confusion and uncertainty into the market. Collectors are left grappling with questions about product legitimacy, future licensing arrangements, and the long-term stability of the hobby, all while trying to navigate a landscape increasingly dominated by a single colossal entity. Now on to Whatnot. Oh, Whatnot. This platform, initially heralded as a groundbreaking innovation for collectors, promised a vibrant, new frontier to engage with the hobby, bringing live interaction directly to our screens. However, for a growing number of enthusiasts, it has regrettably transformed into a treacherous minefield of misleading practices, inflated pricing, and concerning behavioral patterns. We've all witnessed the pervasive tactics employed by some sellers, aggressively promoting cards as nukes, grails, or super high-end, often basing these lofty claims on wildly inflated eBay sold comps or speculative market projections. The frustration then mounts when bids inevitably fail to meet their unrealistic expectations, leading to palpable disappointment on both sides of the transaction. And then there are the ubiquitous mystery packs and repacks. While a select few might genuinely offer legitimate value and an exciting gamble, a significant portion are meticulously calculated with their contents weighted heavily in favor of the seller. This often leads buyers to significantly overpay for a mere, often minuscule, chance at acquiring a truly decent or desirable card. It frequently evokes the unsettling feeling of a used car salesman attempting to push a dubious deal, where the true value is obscured by persuasive rhetoric and the allure of a potential jackpot. A severe and persistent lack of transparency plagues Whatnot, particularly evident in the realm of mixed and matched box breaks. Buyers enter these breaks with the assumption of a fair shake, believing they are participating in a legitimate random assortment of high-quality products. However, these breaks too often include retail, T-mall, or choice boxes, which are universally known within the collecting community for their significantly lower hit rates and inferior correlation compared to hobby boxes. This deliberate bleeding of product types without explicit disclosure creates an unfair advantage for the seller and leaves buyers feeling deceived. For sellers themselves, the Whatnot experience is an undeniable grind. Building a loyal and engaged audience demands relentless consistency, countless hours of streaming, and genuine charisma. Furthermore, achieving sustainable profitability presents a monumental challenge, especially when starting bid prices are driven low by intense competition and buyers arrive with an inherent expectation of steep discounts and aggressive negotiation. But perhaps the most profound and concerning aspect of Whatnot lies in the buyer behavior it inherently encourages and at times exploits. The live, fast-paced nature of the streams masterfully generates intense FOMO, creating a powerful psychological pressure that often leads to impulsive purchases and significant overspending. The constant flashing of bids, the real-time reactions of other viewers, and the fleeting availability of items all contribute to this heightened sense of urgency. And let's not sugarcoat it. The very structure of mystery packs, repacks, and certain breaks can unequivocally feel like a deeply problematic form of gambling, particularly for individuals who are predisposed to addictive behaviors. The thrill of the chase, the immediate gratification of a hit, and the constant promise of the next big score can mimic the addictive patterns seen in traditional gambling. The fact that Whatnot controversially disabled stream replays only further fuels the widespread suspicion that they are actively attempting to obscure or cover up potential liabilities, perhaps related to the questionable practices discussed, or to mitigate scrutiny from regulatory bodies concerning the platform's resemblance to an unregulated gambling sports casino. This lack of historical accountability only erodes trust and makes it harder for buyers to review past transactions or identify problematic patterns. The rise of the influencer has undeniably reshaped numerous hobbies and industries, and the world of collecting is no exception. While some influencers genuinely contribute positively by fostering community, sharing knowledge, and showcasing the beauty of the hobby, a significant segment has introduced practices that have undeniably harmed the collecting landscape. It's a complex issue, but several key areas highlight the detrimental impact. One of the most insidious problems is the widespread dissemination of misinformation. Whether due to a lack of genuine understanding, a rush to be first, or a deliberate attempt to manipulate, influencers often propagate inaccuracies about product rarity, historical context, or market trends. This is compounded by a severe lack of transparency. Many influencers operate in a gray area, failing to clearly disclose sponsorships, paid promotions, or even their own financial stakes in the products they are reviewing or promoting. This lack of candor leaves their audience vulnerable to biased information presented as impartial advice. The pursuit of viral content and engagement often leads to exaggerated claims and overhyping of products. A common tactic is to create an artificial sense of urgency or exclusivity around certain items, pushing their perceived value far beyond their intrinsic worth or actual market demand. This manufactured hype can lead to collectors, particularly new or inexperienced ones, paying exorbitant prices for items that quickly depreciate once the influencer spotlight shifts. This cycle of manufactured hype followed by rapid depreciation can be incredibly damaging to a collector's financial well-being and their trust in the hobby. A particularly egregious conflict of interest arises when influencers actively promote and advocate for products that they are themselves selling, either directly or through affiliated businesses. This creates a deeply unethical scenario where the influencer's primary motivation may be profit rather than providing a genuine, unbiased insight. Without clear and upfront disclosure, their audience is left to believe they are receiving an objective opinion, when in reality, they are being subjected to a sophisticated sales pitch. This practice erodes trust and can lead to significant financial losses for those who fall prey to these deceptive tactics. A pervasive and damaging narrative pushed by many influencers is the idea that every collectible product is a guaranteed investment that will appreciate in value. While some rare and undesirable collectibles can indeed be sound investments over time, this is far from a universal truth. The constant generalization of value, often without proper due diligence or acknowledgement of market volatility, encourages unsuspecting collectors to view every purchase as a financial gain. This optimistic but often baseless advice leads to significant losses for individuals who entered the hobby with the expectation of quick returns, only to find their investments plummet in value. While the influencer landscape offers avenues for connection and information sharing, the unchecked practices of a significant portion have introduced substantial harm to the collecting hobby. The issues of misinformation, lack of transparency, overhyping, conflicts of interest, and the misleading investment narrative have collectively created an environment where collectors are often at a disadvantage, vulnerable to manipulation and financial setbacks. Addressing these challenges requires greater accountability from influencers, more critical engagement from audiences, and a stronger emphasis on ethical practices within the community. So, how do all three of these combine to create the perfect storm? Fanatics' market dominance controls supply and pricing, making the hobby more expensive and less accessible. Whatnot then provides a platform where misleading practices, high-pressure sales, and gambling-like mechanics can thrive, drawing collectors in with a promise of quick wins, but often leading to overspending and disappointment. And influencers, with their reach and perceived authority, amplify these issues, promoting overhyped products, creating investment pressure, and sometimes actively engaging in practices that could harm their own audience. It's a vicious cycle. Fanatics makes it harder to simply collect. Whatnot makes it easier to fall into addictive spending habits. And influencers convince us that we have to participate in this escalating game to be part of the hobby. The result? A hobby that feels less like a fun pastime and more like a high-stakes, opaque investment market. The joy is being sucked out of it and replaced by anxiety and financial pressure. The escalating anxieties within the sports card community are not merely a reaction to surging market values, they signify a deeper existential crisis for the hobby itself. The concern transcends the financial implications of inflated prices, touching upon the fundamental spirit and accessibility that once defined collecting. If we fail to confront these challenges directly and demand rigorous transparency and unwavering accountability from key players, namely Fanatics, dominant live streaming platforms like Whatnot, and the influential figures shaping market trends, the outlook for the sports card market is bleak. The trajectory of the hobby hinges on a collective awakening among collectors. We must exercise critical discernment in our spending habits, carefully evaluating where our money is invested and what content we choose to engage with. It is imperative that we actively define and champion the kind of hobby we aspire to safeguard for future generations. The current predicament facing the sports card world is undeniable and staring us directly in the face, a multifaceted issue that none within the community can afford to dismiss or ignore. The unchecked rise of predatory practices, the proliferation of opaque dealings, and the prioritization of profit over passion threaten to irrevocably alter the landscape of what we once cherished a pastime. The very essence of collecting, the joy of the chase, the camaraderie of fellow enthusiasts, and the historical appreciation of sports is at stake.